Now I'll start by making them a bit more generic as a first step. And for that, I'll rename this function here to getFloatFromFile, because it should no longer be focused on just getting a balance, but indeed any float value. Now the function therefore should actually receive the file name that should contain the float, which should be of type string, as an input, so that we don't always have to refer to the account balance file in there, but we can instead use this with any file name. Therefore, it is also file name, which I want to use here in readFile to read the content of that file. Then I still want to handle my errors here, though the error message should also be more generic, and maybe just say failed to find file. The default value that should be returned could be accepted as an additional argument here, if we want to make this more generic. So we could return the default value then. But here I'll actually stick to 1000 to keep things simple. This code here should stay the way it is, because we definitely still want to convert that file content to a float value. And here we need a more generic error message again, like failed to parse stored value. And I don't return a balance here necessarily, but instead let's say a value. Therefore here we use value, and that's not balance text but value text, for example, to make this all a bit more generic. And now we can use getFloatFromFile instead of calling getBalanceFromFile, and call this with accountBalanceFile as an argument, which is a constant that contains this file name from which we want to read. And that's already all. The function then still does its job. It now could be used in different parts of the app as well, and it can be used to read any float from any file, not limited to dummy account balances. We can therefore now also update the write-to-file function and name it writeFloatToFile. Here I'll name the parameter value, because again, the function should now be usable with any value, not just a value that's used as an account balance. And I'll pass that value to the sprint function here. And we therefore here get a value text then and use that value text here. And I also want to get the file name to which we should write, because again, this should not be hard-coded anymore. Instead here, I want to get the file name, which should be of type string, so that we can use the file name here. And with that, we just have to go to the places where we called writeBalanceToFile, and instead call writeFloatToFile, and also specify the file name here, which is accountBalanceFile in this case. And now we can copy this and use the same code down here. And with that, we got more generic functions, which is the first step. The next step now is to put them into a separate file that's part of a separate package.